This is a very basic setup. The right side of the bike, in most cases, aside from old English bikes and some other rare exceptions, the right side of the bike will control your going and stopping. You've got your front brake and your throttle, and that should always snap all the way back quickly. And then your rear brake is operated by your right foot. Your clutch is operated with the left hand, and your gear shift is operated with your left foot. So the right side makes you go and stop, and the left side is for your clutch and transmission. Got your kill switch. That is the engine off. All that does is kill the spark to the engine. It leaves the lights and everything else on. That is running, or that is the run position. Starter button. On this side we've got our horn, our turn signals. This bike has self-canceling signals, which is a blessing and a curse. Sometimes they will turn themselves off before I get to the turn I'm trying to make, but in this case it's just the one toggle, which you push to the left or to the right. That would be left, that would be right, and then to cancel you just press it in. That's a pretty standard method of doing things, except these ones are supposed to cancel themselves after you make your turn, but sometimes they do it beforehand, so I have to always keep an eye on that and make sure my signal is still on when I get to the intersection. Hazard lights on or off, that is something that's one of the few additional things from the bare basics that's on this bike. And then my high beam and low beam. Aside from the actual switches on a motorcycle, everything is operated with pressure rather than movement. You don't want to be thinking about the front brake in terms of how far it has to move to get you stopped. It's all about the pressure that you're applying. A little bit more pressure, a little bit more pressure, a little bit more pressure. How much the lever moves is secondary to how much pressure you're applying. If you think about how far you're moving it rather than the pressure you're applying, you're more likely to overdo it and lock the front wheel. And it's the same thing with the throttle. Don't just crack it wide open. If you want to ride smoothly, it's just apply a little bit of pressure, just roll it back, and then roll it forward. And with the throttle, you want your hand to basically be, your wrist to be level. You don't want to be up like this, because then if you end up rolling on too much throttle, your body will be pushed back, and then all of a sudden you've opened the throttle even more. You just don't have control. You'll be bouncing down the road out of control, going way faster than you ever wanted. So, nice straight line from your hand to your forearm. Nice and steady. That way, if I get pulled back, it's not going to roll on the throttle at all. I always keep at least I always keep at least one finger on the brake, depending on the bike I'm riding. Always at least one finger at all times is on the brake. Same thing with the clutch. This clutch is pretty hard, so I tend to keep 2 fingers on the clutch. Same with the brakes on this bike. They're not super responsive, so I do keep 2 fingers on there as well. The rear brake, it's just your foot, and it's just a little bit of pressure there. You don't need to slam on it. You'll lock up your wheel, and a locked wheel does not give you control. Almost all your braking power comes from the front anyway, so the rear brake is more for stability and for that extra tiny little bit of stopping power when you need it. The shifter, although it does move a designated amount to make a shift, it's still good to think about it in terms of pressure. If I'm going to upshift, I like to apply the pressure a little bit before I shift, while I'm still on the throttle. Apply a tiny bit of pressure to the lever, and then as I roll off the throttle and bring in the clutch, it will shift into the next gear nice and smoothly. And to make a good solid shift and never end up missing a gear and ending up in a false neutral and rounding out your gears and destroying your transmission, I also like to hold that pressure for a little bit after the shift until the clutch is all the way back out again. Once the clutch is all the way back out, the transmission is fully engaged and the gear is solidly picked and not ever going to slip back out and round your gears. With the clutch, it's all about the friction zone. There's with the clutch lever out, the clutch is fully engaged. You have full engine power going to your transmission and to your rear wheel. But you can pull that lever in just a touch and cut back the power going to the wheel in increments, so you can have 0 power to the wheel if the lever's all the way, well, not even all the way in, but in far enough to fully disengage the transmission. And then you can let it out and it'll start to drag, and the more you let it out, the more drag there is until it's fully engaged. Handlebars as well. The handlebars are all about pressure as well. It's just little bits of pressure that get you moved down the road and keep you in control. You don't want to be gripping onto them tight. You want to be able to wiggle your fingers at all times while you're riding. If you're gripping the handlebars tightly, you don't have good control. You will need your arms to stay relaxed. You need your fingers to be able to move and control the clutch and brake. And you need your arm to be relaxed to control the throttle smoothly, and also to make the inputs into the handlebars. The handlebars are there to hold the other controls and to provide you with steering. They are not there for you to hang on to the bike with. You should be able to stay on the bike using your core and your legs and your butt. You shouldn't need the handlebars to keep you from flying off the back of the bike. They're there for control, not for you to grip onto to stay on the bike.